Hello, welcome to episode 112 of the Craft House Magic podcast. My name's Ellie and I'm coming to you from Norwich in Norfolk in the UK, and today's the 16th of April, so welcome everybody. I hope you've all had a lovely crafty week since the last time I've spoken to you, and I'm here to share all the things that I've been making in the last 7 days. So today I have some knitting, some dressmaking, some embroidery, some cross stitch, some confessions and a gadget to show you. I'm not having a shop update this week, but I will have some more things in the shop next week. So you can find me on Instagram, Ravelry and Facebook as Craft House Magic, and I have my own website, crafthousemagik.co.uk, where you can find my handmade project bags, hand-dyed yarns, stitch markers, progress keepers and HiyaHiya knitting needles and accessories, as well as fabrics now. We have a couple of Makalongs going on at the moment. We have the What a Lot of Pottercal, which I'm co-hosting with the lovely Becky from the Back to Blighty podcast. In my Ravelry group is the discussion thread, and then over in Becky's Ravelry group is the finished objects thread. So do come over and have a look and come and join us, have a chat in the discussion thread. We're basically knitting anything from the Harry Potter knitting magic book, and there's so many lovely projects there already. I'm also hosting another knit along, or it's a make along actually, because it's knitting and crochet as well included, and it's the spring shawl along. So if you're knitting a shawl or a scarf, I think that counts as well, come and join us over in my Ravelry group, which is just a discussion thread. I'm going to draw prizes from there, so rather than having to have a finished object as well. So it's all about the taking part that matters. So do come and join us over in the Ravelry group. It's really lovely to see what everyone's been making, and there's always some lovely inspiration over there as well. Anyway, let's get into the good stuff. I'm going to start with the knitting first, as always, and I'm going to start with the project that I've been working on the most. So first of all, I've been working on my Pure Joy shawl, and this is a beautiful shawl pattern by Joji Locatelli, and it's a sort of a crescent shape, really long shawl, and it's a bit difficult to show you exactly how it'll sort of look before it's sort of blocked really, because it does sort of curl up as you're trying to hold it up, but hopefully you can see how the colours are working together and how long it is. If I hold it right across my arm span, it's over 1 metre long at the moment, and I still have quite a bit to knit on it. So the yarns I'm using are Tell It To My Heart, and the one just in this little eyelet area is Love Shack. I'll show you them in the cake so that you can see what they look like a little bit better. So those are the two colourways that I'm using, and they're both in my own hand-dyed yarn. Obviously this is the one I'm using as the main colour at the moment, but there is a big stripe of this colour on the outside of the shawl. Well, I've chosen to do this colour anyway, but I think those colours go together really nicely. And it's a nice subtle contrast, not too much of a contrast there. So I'm using the merino nylon base because I think that works nicely for a shawl, and it's coming along lovely. I've actually put another cable on this so that you can see it. I'm not working with it with the cable this long, but I just thought it'd be easier for you guys to see. You can see that it was started just here, and then it's worked in sort of lopsided arches using some short rows, and I'm really pleased with that. I think it's a really wearable shape, and it'll wrap round a couple of times, and I think that colour will go with lots of my clothes, so I'm really pleased about that. So I'm using the needle size that it said in the pattern, and the pattern is really nice and easy to follow, and it's very intuitive actually. Once you get into the rhythm of it, it's flying off the needles. My next thing I've got on the needles is my Gwanwyn Sweater, and the pattern's by Verena Cause. I should have really put this on larger needles as well so you could see it a little bit better. But basically, I've only done since the lacy cabley pattern up until now, and I'm still actually not split for the sleeves. But that's how it's looking so far. It's still coming along slowly. I've got a bit distracted by shawls at the moment, and this is also in my own yarn as well, in the purple haze colourway. And I'm not far off splitting for the sleeves actually, and I do love the way that this lace is worked up. Really pleased with that. So if you haven't seen the podcast before, I'm actually making this into a cardigan rather than a sweater, and there's a small section at the front there where I've just done some plain knit stitches so then I can steek it afterwards. Very exciting. So that's my Gwanwyn Sweater by Verena Kors. Next on the needles is a new cast on. So I've had my eye on the Jigshawl puzzle, by Stephen West, and I made a good start on it. So this is what I've done so far. This is section 1. Actually, it might be a good idea for me to put a picture of what the shawl's going to look like in the end, just so that you can get an idea of how this works in with all the other colourways that I'm going to be using. And I didn't realise, actually, I just looked in the sort of instructions on the Ravelry page of Stephen's pattern, and it said about using 4-ply or fingering weight yarn. So I'd got some yarn dyed up for myself out of my own colourways, ready to use, and I didn't realise you end up using 2 yarns, knitting them at the same time. So it's more or less like a DK weight really, but you do a lot of marling. But for this first triangle shape, I decided actually just to use 2 strands of the same colourway because I wanted to be able to see this colour in my shawl. So this is the Come On Eileen colourway in my own yarn, and this is the merino nylon base again. And I love how it's knitting up actually with the 2 strands. Lovely and squishy and thick. So this shawl is going to be amazingly warm. Not really that appropriate for this time of year, but at least I've made a start on it. I've just got them in the bottom of my bag. Actually, you can't really see those properly, so let's lift those out. So this is the one I've just showed you. That's Come On Eileen. And then we have... I think We're Alone Now, and that just reminded me of sort of 80s outfits, so that I Think We're Alone Now seemed the perfect song to pick. I have Holding Out for a Hero there, which is some different sort of greens and greys together. I'm also using Tell It To My Heart in this big one that I'm using in my Locatelli's Pure Joy shawl as well. So that one's going in there. I have Lucky Star, which is a pale pink with little grey speckles in there. Then I have Smells Like Teen Spirit, which is a light turquoisey green with some pinks and greys in there and different colours. I have Rock Me Amadeus, which is that one, which is basically some blues and greens and purples. And last, sort of very pale coral with greys and pinks in there as well. So those fit nicely in my big bag that I've got set up for my project. So I'll pop those back in. Really enjoying knitting this project already. And it's going to be a big one, I think. So there we are. I'll give you a bit of a close-up so you can see how the stitches look close up. So it's worked on 5mm needles, so it's lovely, thick and squishy, and it does look a little bit like underwear at the moment. But I'm sure it's going to be the snuggliest, biggest shawl. Be lovely. And lastly, I have another new cast on. So I'd picked out my little minis that I got from Ducky Darlings a little while ago, and they are Star Trek themed. And I thought it's about time I started to knit Adam another pair of socks. So this was a mini set from Ducky Darlings, and it was called Make It So Minis. And that's the label. And it is a merino yarn with some Donegal nip in. And I've decided that I needed to have red at the top of the sock, because obviously that's like the commanding officer's colour. So I needed to have that at the top. So I haven't done a lot of that just yet, but I have made a good start. So hopefully you'll have a little bit more to see next week. And it's a little while since I've knitted some socks, so I needed to have some on the needles. I'm knitting them on my ChowGoo interchangeable needles with the softer cable as well, because some of the ChowGoo ones are really stiff, but I thought for a change I'd use some ChowGoo needles. So I have a cheat finished object. I have the Lisa Haynes pattern of the right around the corner shawl knitted up in 2 of my colourways that I sell in the shop. So this navy here is Because the Night, and this is Running Up That Hill, which is a sort of combination of blues and greens and greys, which I think go together lovely. It's not blocked yet, but I hope to get it blocked and put some tassels on it by next week so I can show you what that looks like. But my mother-in-law Liz was really bored over the lockdown, so we dropped some yarn outside her house on our way to the supermarket because she lives only a mile or so up the road, so she had something to do. So she knitted all that for me in a couple of weeks, so I've now dropped another project off so she can finish it off for me. But I really love the squishy garter stitch in this pattern. The one I knitted before, I'm definitely going to wear that as well. So I've got 2 right around the corner shawls that I can wear, which is a bit of a cheat really. So I have a little bit each of the yarns left over so that I can make the tassels with, which I'm going to make big tassels this time, because the first one I made really tiny little tassels, and I'm going to go big, or as big as I can, with these yarns anyway, and see how I get on. But there we are. And I have a sewing section to show you next. So Barbara, would you like to come over and show us what you've got on? Thank you very much, Barbara. So Barbara is wearing my new jacket that I've made, and it's from the Vogue 9037, I think. I'll pop a picture up here so that you can see what the original pattern was supposed to look like. And I think it was view A that I picked. There was basically 3 options for collars: a very narrow collar, a medium-sized collar, which is this one, and one that was much larger. I actually think that when I've made it, the collar actually looks slightly larger than it did in the actual pattern cover, although it was just a sketch rather than somebody actually wearing it. I basically more or less stuck to most of the pattern instructions, although I have extended the darts on the back of the garment, which I shall show you in a minute, and I've also lined it, because the original one said that you basically was supposed to hem it to the inside and just stitch it so it wasn't lined at all. But I wasn't really happy with that, because I thought it would make a much nicer finish if I put some lining in there. So at the front here, there's these very unusual darts where the stitching only just goes a short length, and then the fabric is just sort of gapes open a little bit, so it's more like a casual type of dart, I suppose. I've never seen them before, but I thought I'll give them a go. And they did have these darts on the front as well, and on the back as well, I mean, but I did actually change these, because when I actually put the garment on, once I'd lined it, I decided that it just needed to be taken in just a little bit, because it looked a little bit bulky in the areas just above where the dart was. So it was about here, I think, that the original short dart was, but I've just taken it up the back a little bit and right down to the bottom. I've kept the style of dart just going to there and leaving the fabric just open out like it is on the front at the top there, but I took the darts down right down to nothing, if that makes sense, just at the back here, because it just sort of bagged out over the bottom of the belt, and it just looked awful. So I think I'm happy with it now, so that's okay. So that's the dart modifications I made. The belt was obviously part of the pattern, so I did add some belt loops as well, and they're basically just a crocheted chain with some really thick polyester thread that I had in my stash. I don't know what I bought this really thick polyester thread for, but it's perfect for doing the loops to hold the belt in, and I've got those on both sides just there, so that when I untie the belt, then it doesn't just fall to the ground. So I've lined all the inside of the garment with a sort of bluey grey poly cotton material, so that it didn't crease too much. And you can see that I've used some pretty floral binding just to go around the edge there, just to finish it off nicely. I didn't actually line it in the traditional sense. I basically cut out another one of the outer pieces out of the lining fabric and placed the facing material on top of that and stitched it down the side. and then I bagged out most of the edges apart from the bottom, but because it's got these pointy details at the front, I didn't feel as if it would look that neat if I bagged it out all over. So basically I then sewed the binding on the bottom of the material all the way along the bottom and folded that in and hand stitched that all the way around, and I think that's worked out nicely. When I first actually sewed all the binding on, I found that some of the wool sagged a little bit because it had more give than the lining fabric, but actually I gave it a bit of a steam because I've got like a steamer that you can, rather than an iron, just steamed the material, and it actually sucked it in. It was fine, so it's basically shrunk it very slightly. But that's worked out lovely for me because it's neatened it up nicely. And I didn't have to worry about it sort of sagging on the outside compared to the lining fabric. In retrospect, what I should have probably done is interlined the coat outside fabric with some cotton, just to make sure that it give it a little bit more strength rather than just having it on its own. But I did want it to have a little bit of drape because of these pointy bits at the front here. That's what they're supposed to do. But now I've given it a steam. I think it's really lovely. So I'm really pleased about that. So Barbara has kindly let me pop the jacket on to show you. But this is what it looks like on me. The collar definitely looks bigger on me than it does in the photograph on the pattern page, but I think I still quite like it, and I really like these pointy bits at the front here as well as the belt. It does stick out a little bit at the back, but I don't think that's too bad. I think that actually is quite flattering really, rather than it sort of bulged out here quite a lot before I extended those darts down. But there we go. I thought I'd also show you what the lining looks like on the inside. That's all the way through into the sleeves as well, and up to the facing. Thank you very much, Barbara. She's got it back on already. She must have been a bit chilly. So I have been doing some cross stitch. So I promised myself that I'd do a little bit of this each week. So I'll show you the what it's supposed to look like first. So it's a beautiful sampler that I picked up from a charity shop. It does say that it's a Moira Blackburn pattern, but I don't think it's being produced anymore. But you might be lucky like me and get it from a charity shop. So this is how I've got on this week. I've basically done all the writing all across the top. So it looks quite a lot, but I think the writing is a lot quicker than the rest of it really. So last week I was working on the tree just there, and I'm hoping to do some of the little bits and bobs that are on this side for next week. Ta-da! I think when I was working on this, I was watching Indiana Jones. So it just reminds me of Indiana Jones now because I was watching it last time. So that's my cross stitch, but I also have some other embroidery to show you. So I think it was last year that I picked this up, and it's a Niki Franklin pattern from the Stitchery of a beautiful tree, and I've been putting off, I don't know why, starting it, but now I've made a good start. I'm sure I'm going to get it done relatively quickly. But this is how I've got on so far, and I've basically finished all the tree trunk, and I've got to start doing all the lovely French knots, which I think is going to be loads of fun. I do love a French knot, and you can see quite how many there are on there. But the lovely kit was absolutely gorgeous from the Stitchery. It had got the threads all on a card like this. So this is done with just 4 colours, some really nice quality thread, and then there was a card saying what the stitches are and how you do them, and then a description of exactly what order you should do things. Obviously the fabric came with the kit as well, and it had the image sort of printed on it as well, so you didn't have to trace anything, which was handy. I love the other patterns that Niki's got in her shop as well. So you can find her on Niki Franklin Needlework on Instagram as well. And I think, so the website's called nikifranklin.com. And she's got some beautiful patterns, so hopefully by next time I shall have some of the actual tree to show you, some of those knots to show you. So that's my second sort of embroidery thing that I've got. But I also have a gadget that's related to the sort of cross stitch and embroidery. So I had this for Christmas. Adam bought it for me. So this bit goes underneath your leg, and then it holds up the piece of work that you're working on, so that you can have both hands to work with the needle rather than having to hold the frame as well. And I find this really, really useful. So this one I got from a company called Elbesse, I think it's how you say it. It's called an Elbesse seat frame, and I'll leave a link in the show notes in the down bar if you're looking for one. So this is the one I used for my Niki Franklin embroidery that I was doing, but I use a big floor standing frame for my cross stitch, and although it's really useful to have a big frame to put things on, sometimes it's a bit annoying to sort of move it and have somewhere to put it. But this one works just as well, having it to go underneath your leg. And I was actually doing lots of embroidery in the garden at the weekend, so this came in very, very useful. So I would definitely recommend this to people who are just starting to get into embroidery, who haven't heard of it yet. And I'm sure if you're already doing lots of embroidery, you've probably got one of these already. It just took me a while. Really pleased with that. So like I said, I'll leave a link in the show notes of where you can get yours if you want one. So now I have my confessions. And it's actually embroidery themed again. So I was using my needle minder from Chapel View Crafts, and I thought, I need some more of these, because I've obviously got 2 embroideries with the cross stitch I'm doing as well on the go, so I need them. I need multiples of these. So I went on Cheryl's website, which is chapelviewcrafts.co.uk, and I just couldn't resist buying 3. This was my favourite, I think. Let me take it out of the packet, you can't see. So this was my favourite one. It's the most gorgeous breadboard. How realistic does that bread look? And a little hot cross bun as well, and a croissant. So that is absolutely beautiful. So on the back there's a separate little magnet that goes behind your work so that you can hold on to your piece of embroidery. I shall show you. So you put that onto the back, and it holds nicely like that. But isn't that gorgeous? Absolutely love it. And then I had to buy this one as well. I kept these in the packet thinking that I'd be able to show you them through the plastic, but I don't think you'll be able to see them very well. I got some yellow little cakes there. So I've already got one with the pink cakes on, but this one's got lemon meringue, so I needed it. And again, it's got another little magnet on the other side that you put other side of your work, and your needle sits on there with the magnet. And then last but not least, a giant jammy dodger. And that again has got a separate little magnet bit that goes on the back. But I thought they were absolutely gorgeous, so I needed some. If I put them all on this piece, then you'll be able to see them all next to each other. Look at those. Definitely recommend these, because the work that Cheryl puts into all her sort of stitch markers and needle minders is absolutely stunning. And I've used this no end, and I've also got a Christmas one actually, but that's tucked away with all my Christmas bits and bobs. So very naughty confession. But it was a must-have, so it's not naughty at all. That's what I'm telling myself. So thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I shall see you in the next episode. Bye!